Namaskar from Italy. I am Antonietta Rozzi, President of Salva Yoga International, and I am glad and honored to be with you, to be connected with you for this special event of the International Yoga Day and for the webinar on Dhyana, and Samadhi. A few weeks ago, Swami Atma Ji was in Italy to attend a conference, and he asked me to speak about the universal appeal of yoga movement in Europe, with a special reference to Italy. We can say that there are at least two parts that have awakened Europe's interest in India, because Europe has been interested in the Indian culture even before the yoga culture. So there are at least these two parts. One is a social cultural movement in the early 20th century towards new frontiers of culture in the East. Later, a development on a renewal movement and search for different vision of life, especially after 1968 and the Youth Revolution, has shown the interest not only in Indian culture but also in yoga. So after that period of romantic falling in love with yoga and everything that sounds exotic, we must say, distant, different from the European culture, awakened interest and developed curiosity in Indian culture and yoga in particular, with many facets. I remember that in my dissertation thesis at university on a French writer, Romain Rolland, I found some of the explanation for the interest of the West, particularly Europe, in India, by describing the theories of this writer, who, without ever having been to India, wrote three of the best known biographies of great Indian souls: Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda, and the Mahatma Gandhi. I would like just to read a few words of this thesis that can explain how indeed the European culture were at that time very much interested in having new horizon of culture, especially in the West. I wrote in the thesis, I have been able to notice through studies, courses, in the main Indian institution and university, the actuality and modernity of the ancient science of yoga that perfectly fits to the need of contemporary society, contemporary Western society. During one of my first trips to India in the late 70s, while visiting the community of the Ramakrishna Mission in Calcutta, in the well-stocked bookshop of Sanskrit and Bengali text, I found two volumes wrote by a French author I knew a little bit about, Romain Rolland, which amazed me greatly because there were the two biographies of the master and the founder of the community, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. Intrigued by the fact that these two biographies, written by an European, were considered the official one by the Ramakrishna Mission itself. I bought the English volume, and on my return to home, the official ones and the French version. If I had not noticed the author's name, upon reading, I might have thought that they had been written by a disciple of the two great figures known, admired, and revered throughout India. So linear and consistent were they with the ancient tradition, with the vision of life, with the philosophical and religious thought of an ancient and modern India, where religious sentiment and culture are not separate domain, but only aspect of a single reality. And I explain the historical and cultural curiosity of European culture toward India. In the context of a profound crisis of cultural identity in Europe at that time, particularly after the disaster of the First World War, some scholars, thinkers, situate the gaze of European culture toward the East as a mirror and reflection of its internal problems. Due to the European colonial presence and the interest of intellectuals of the time, Asia, and in particular India, presents itself as a space to be explored, not only for new proposals, but also for its ancient and deep-rooted cultural and religious tradition. India, China, and Japan became the new frontiers of cultural exploration, of the vision of an otherness opposed to the supremacy of European culture, judged to have failed. Indeed, European culture has been the center of the culture in the ancient time and in modern time, but people were so disappointed of the result of the war, of the conflict in Europe, that they need to have some new horizon to explore. So many European writers, poets, philosophers, psychologists, pedagogists have been influenced by Indian culture. And then only yoga seems to have the characteristics to involve not only the cultured person, but everyone in the Western society, in a kind of process of more and more democratic development and exchange in between culture. And as nowadays we are living in an even more globalized world, the exchanges are more easy, but at the same time it's not so easy to have a vision of respect and mutual respect of the culture. Especially in Europe, we have the kind of predatory attitude. We take from other culture what seems to be useful or pleasant for us, and not the totality of the culture, of a path, of a discipline. And this is what happened to yoga. So if at the beginning the communication between the culture, East and West, and especially India and Europe, has been a process of more educated people, then it has become a process of interest of many aspects of the culture, and especially the practical aspect of the Indian culture. Yoga, this special discipline, this special science, which has a theoretical part, but also an experiential part, a practical part. And this was fascinating, I think, especially in the way of thinking of European people, who are used to separate the theory and the practice, and are more centered for culture reasons and culture habits to put the emphasis on theories. So with the help of a presentation, let's just summarize some steps, some important steps that make yoga so popular in the West and especially in Europe and Italy as well. There is an historical yoga knowledge that impressed the European culture, due especially to traduction of books. So books were available in European language because many writers, many thinkers translate some books from Hindi or Sanskrit. And this was the way to discover the Indian culture, some way mysterious and unknown, mostly unknown in Europe. We had many philosophers, we can remember Arthur Schopenhauer, psychologists as well, as been in touch with Indian culture, which influenced their way of thinking and their theories. in literature as well, as I said, Romain Rolland, a French writer, who won the Nobel Prize in 1915, and many others. And in yoga, some books start to explain theory of yoga mainly, such as Lilian Silburn, Arthur Avalon, Tucci, Italian explorer, and Mircea Eliade, and many others. So the first contact with the Indian culture has been done by translation and knowledge through books. Then some Indian masters or Indian yogi came to the West in America, and especially Swami Vivekananda, and his speech at the Parliament of Religion has been a great success and has made a great impression on the Western culture, because for the first time he spoke about cooperation, respect in between religions. And also the book of Swami Yogananda Paramahansa had a great influence to spread yoga, a very special yoga, with the vision of some kind of magical that attracts especially the American public and then European public. Why yoga has such a great success in the European countries? Well, it's because of many causes, many conditions of European states and culture. First of all, the materialism of Western society that started at the beginning of the 20th century and increases till now, until nowadays. This makes a kind of desert inside people and inside society. There is a part of us very important, and a part of a society very important, the spiritual, the inner part that has been cancelled in our way of living, in our way of thinking in the West. So yoga seems to be the solution or a new approach to this area of the interiority that is missing nowadays. This condition of the attraction to the outer world has created also deep religious crisis in many people and in many religions too, and has promoted, we can say, some kind of fanaticism that still is manifest in the society and among religions. So this creates also loss of value and ethical rules. The publicity, the way of living, the input from the media create a kind of atmosphere where everyone wants immediately what he would like to have without involvement, personal effort, without tapas. And this creates also a kind of emptiness among the people, and especially among young populations. So this, like in Europe, part of the society is looking for something new, a search of a new identity which has been lost in the last decades in society, and that create a kind of emptiness, depression in personal attitude. And once again, the more fragile population is the young one and the eldest one. So we can say that after the 60s, after the Second War, where all this problematic situation in Europe has been increased enormously, The new society is looking for something that can stabilize, that can make the people more easily comfortable in modern life, that can contrast the speed of the life, the new life in society, and the stress that is the real pandemic in Western, and I am afraid in Eastern as well, societies. So yoga seems to be the solution, or at least one of the solutions, to solve many problems, personal problems and social problems. Especially in the 60s and 70s, yoga has spread as a new vision, something very strange but at the same time fascinating, especially for young people, with the example of the Beatles, a famous group of musician groups who visited India and followed the discipline of yoga. This is due to these cultural changes in the youth generation in 1968, first in USA and then in Europe. We had also more opportunity to know the culture of our country with the development of communication, and it has become a kind of fashion to inquire about other community and other culture. Yoga has been seen at the beginning as a symbol, as one of the symbols of the protest of the youth in 77 and 78. And the knowledge of yoga spread more or less all around the world. And in the beginning, yoga has been seen as mainly physical activity, where asanas and fitness were the main points. There was not at that time, apart from some specialists, the knowledge of the theory of yoga, the pedagogy, the technology, the full technology of yoga, which is extraordinary. But those who practice yoga in the West were more oriented and focused on fitness and mainly asanas. At the same time, there was a kind of search for spirituality, this aspect of life that has been lost, especially after the Second War, and a need also of a new spiritual identity, because the old religion, the whole culture, was seen as something not enough updated to the need of society, especially in the young population. So there were this kind of need to find a spiritual identity, but which is not connected and related to a special religion. The religion of the fathers were seen in Italy and in other countries of Europe as something which is not so useful today, which is not real, which does not answer the deep and real question of existence that many young people were asking for. So there were also a need of change, to see something new, to explore something new, and a kind of exotic fashion. All what is strange and coming from far away was very much appreciated and became easily on fashion. Yoga started to spread in a more practical way and in a more systematic way. And yoga has been seen as a possible profession. To become a yoga teacher, in fact, was and is still nowadays easy, because in Western countries there are no rules, no special rules about the discipline of yoga and who can teach yoga. So everyone can teach yoga. There are not state titles. Yoga became in this way a kind of social conquest. Those who cannot attend universities, those who cannot have a special education, can in some way become a kind of teacher, a special teacher of yoga practice. It was and it still is an easy way to become teacher and to play the role of guide. And I must say that there are many Western gurus that proclaim themselves gurus, and this maybe is the black side of this spreading of yoga in society. And yoga became very soon popular, and nowadays everyone speaks about yoga, even if they don't know anything about it, especially in newspaper, in TV programs, in internet. There are a lot of yoga community, and more we can see how yoga enter into the culture of a population through the publicity. All kind of publicity show nowadays some yoga postures, some yoga classes, some yoga attitude. This show how yoga has conquered all the layers of the society and slowly has become also a topic of business. So why we founded Sarva Yoga International? Around 2000, yoga has become a topic more or less known to the public, and not as known as nowadays due to the politic of Indian government and the support of Indian government in the spreading of yoga, and especially the International Yoga Day. But still, people knows at least something about yoga. This leads to apply what I call the predatory attitude of Western society, to think that from a culture we can grasp a part of a topic, of a science, of a discipline, and reject what is not interesting for us. Yoga is a special, very special pedagogy. It is a system so well structured that taking only few parts is quite useless, or at least it can be dangerous. It is as if we take some part of a car or lorry, of a small car, a city car and a race car, and put all together. The new car will never work properly. This is the idea we had, to take whatever is feeling to be useful or feeling to be of our interest, or it is more easy. So, beginning, the main interests in yoga were asanas, some breathing techniques, only for physical wellness. Due to the many changes also in European culture and European society, to the many difficulties of the new and modern society and way of living, the increase of psychological problems, especially in young population, the increase of many psychosomatic diseases, the enormous increase of stress, which is the source of all diseases, psychological but also physical pathologies. So more and more people oriented their practice and their interest also to the mental aspect of yoga, especially the meditation, with many approaches in different ways and different techniques of meditation. But at the same time, there have been many distortions of the yoga techniques and the yoga goals especially. So I decided to ask the advice of the masters, the gurus I had the privilege to meet during my trips to India, and ask them how we can preserve the true tradition of yoga, and ask them their support in this mission as well. What is always missing in the teaching of yoga is yama and niyama. Because it's not easy. We don't like imposition, we don't like rules. It's a normal way of living and thinking of human beings. And especially when we want to change something in the society, um, this kind of concept of ethics seems to be old and not so useful nowadays, or not attracting. As yoga spread more and more among the general public, it slowly became also a kind of economical activity, and many schools, many courses has been opened only or mainly for business. So I decided to make a tour, a yatra in India to the main institutions. I am still grateful to the many masters that support the idea to create this association, Swami International. I remember very well my first visit to the Ramakrishna Mission and Institute of Culture. I had a wonderful darshan with Puja Swami Prabhanandaji Maharaj and received his blessing and encouragement for Sarva Yoga movement. I am grateful to Swami Priyanandaji for continuing to give his support to our activity and be part of our community and receive blessing and help in our mission. There are several ways to continue to spread yoga in Europe, and we choose the way of respect of the tradition, of the support of the masters and gurus, and the help of the institutions that are part of our association and share our mission. The second goal of our mission is also to promote the knowledge of the great masters that some young people doesn't even know, because many of them doesn't know even who was Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Shivananda, and maybe they practice and know yoga through some modern version, sometimes far away from the goal, the real goal of yoga. Know in such a way that yoga is for everyone. It's not only for special people, it's not only for those who want to become monks or to meditate all the day. It is a practice that is available and effective in any moment and every moment of our life, and for any and every goal. This has been and is still the mission and my personal interest in teaching and spreading yoga. There are many ways to promote yoga in the West and in Europe. We, as Swami Yoga International, I choose to be involved in the spreading of yoga in this attitude of respect, with the help of a great master that can support our. There are several ways to promote yoga in the West. We choose to promote with this attitude of respect of the tradition, help of great masters, blessing of yogis and gurus. We had the chance and the privilege to meet and to be in touch with them. To maintain the authenticity of yoga, the quality of the yoga teachers and their education is fundamental. We organize some special yoga courses for children at school, for our elders, for health and wellness and yoga therapy. And because of these courses, we had the opportunity to be in touch with teachers of universities. And these same teachers invited in our courses notice how yoga can be useful to face some challenges, especially in schools, and asked me to teach yoga in education. This is an important step in our country. Universities in Italy are mainly state universities, and usually it's not so easy to introduce new topic and some strange topic like yoga. This has been, I think, an important conquest for the spreading of yoga, because in our culture, especially in our European culture, a new topic, a science, has a real value only if it is included in academic work. So, doing official courses with credits for students starting from education. Now we have also in physical education and in therapy in some universities. It's a big step to introduce yoga in academic world and in culture with the full respect it deserves. We have seen in modern time how the culture of India has been imported in Europe and in the West, mainly at the beginning as a response to the crisis of Europe and a need of new culture and mixing with new inputs from other culture. We have seen also that the colonialism and the production of books has improved the knowledge of the Indian culture in Europe and the West. The main interest in Indian culture starts from the curiosity and the attraction of some intellectual and some cultural person, and through the influence of the writers and the exchange in the two cultures, yoga has become more and more popular and has increased the popularity among all the population, not only the cultural person. And in the last decade and the last 10 years, yoga has become really a new to face many challenges and many needs of the society. It seems strange that such an old methodology, an old science, can be useful today. And it seems that every problem, every challenge that we have in society or personal challenges, yoga offers some solution. How is it possible that such a whole science is still valid nowadays in some and very different contexts, social, cultural, ecological contexts? I think that it is because the main investigation of the ancient rishis and yogis was not on the cultural aspect, not on the social or historical aspect of life, but on the general and universal aspect of life. Yogis has inquired on the mystery of life, why we exist, where are we going, from where are we coming. These are the questions, the very deep and intense question that every human being, since the beginning of the existence of the humanity, has asked. It is the real goal of life to find the answer to this question, this existential question. That's why yoga is not only popular for wellness, for well-being, for health, which are important aspects of life, of course, but mainly because it includes in its program and in its structure this inner plane of existence. Modern life is more and more turned toward outer world, to the materialism, but still every human being has inside a kind of deep research of spirituality, of evolution of consciousness. It's mainly the analysis of the consciousness, that mysterious entity of human being that No one can give a real and complete definition even today. That has been the topic of research of yogis. And this aspect of life, which is deeply rooted in everyone, which is the real question of life, with happiness in our life, is the main topic of yoga. That's why it is not only popular, but really we can say that yoga is a universal science of life. I used to call it pedagogy of life because I am a pedagogist, and it's really fascinating to see how yoga can answer any challenges and any problems we as human beings have to face in life. Yoga as solution for the question and the problem of kids who has to grow, to learn, have important duties to build their personalities. Yoga as answer and gives support to the activity of our life, which is speedy, stressful. And there are so many techniques as antidote to this aspect of modern life. Yoga gives some solution and some help in the last period of the life of human being, when we lose our energies, where we are not so performant. And it is really surprising that it can be adopted by any culture, in any time, in any country, in any continent, because yoga inquires on the true nature of human being, which is the same and remain the same across the time, across the space and the geography. This is really the appeal of yoga for everyone. It's not a religion, but still it takes care of our spiritual life, which is a part. Yoga takes care of this part of our constitution, which is the spiritual part. Sometimes we confuse spiritual with religion. It's true that obviously religion are related to spiritual part, but there is a kind of need, spiritual needs, as Carl Gustav Jung has defined, as a pulsion, as a natural pulsion of every human being. So a science as yoga, which takes care of our physical life and physical body and the fitness of our body, which takes care of the organization of our energy, vital energy or prana, which inquires and gives instruments and tools to control and harmonize the mind. The mind is one of the precious tools of human being, and at the same time is worst enemy. So yoga has a very special and unique pedagogy to afford and to balance all the aspects of life. It's a really particular pedagogy, which is based on this concept to overcome the limitation of every plane of our constitution. Yoga proposes to explore and to empower and to develop all the possibilities and potentialities of this plane. All the sages and rishi and saint has announced that we are not only the body, we are not only the mind, but there is something more of a general and universal plan of existence. These are the two aphorisms of yoga. Why yoga is so popular and so well accepted in different cultures? Probably because yoga inquires, probably because yoga has been structured in such a way that it can fit all the needs of human being of any time, in any place, in any historical or cultural environment. Because yoga takes care of the essential of the life and the constitution of human being. We are the only species able to be conscious of what we are doing, or to what we are thinking. Consciousness is the most mysterious function, the most mysterious expression of the life of human being. Still, yogi knows that all the mysteries of life can be discovered only by a change in our consciousness, a change in our state of consciousness. And for that, they structured a very effective, very intelligent, and very also unusual pedagogy to discover that we are more than a body, more than the energy, more than the mind. They use special didactics which included the exploration and the development of potentiality of every plane. To be able to overcome the limitation of our body and the limitation of our mind, yogis gives us techniques to explore completely, deeply, the body, the energy, the mind, and the several levels and layers of our minds. And every technique is focused on one of these planes, but the interesting thing is that the same technique have effect on all the plane together, what we call transversal activity or transversal goal. In this special pedagogy is very interesting because it helps to cut the limitation and the barrier in between culture. Yoga addresses its theory and its practice to the universal aspect of human being. That's why it is attractive also in the West, even though maybe not all the practitioners of yoga knows or are interested in knowing what is behind this knowledge and what is this universal aspect that is fascinating and at the same time makes yoga a real technique for well-being at all levels. And the well-being of one person, of one individual person, has an effect on all the person around him, and we can say all the other beings. We all know the effect of butterfly. Yogis knows very well that we are all connected and that every action, every thought has an impact not only on ourselves but on all the creation. And this is maybe the new and very old revolution that we can bring in our society. It is also the discipline of hope, hope in the future. One of the main problems in our Western society, and I am afraid in Eastern society as well, is a lack of perspective and a lack of idea of future in new generation. There is only insecurity, conflicts, wars, difficulties in life, and it seems there are no paths that can lead us to the future. And it is a tragedy for all, a population that have no hope in the future. Yoga, coming from very old tradition and culture, seems to be the cure for all the diseases in modern societies, and at the same time a glimpse of light and hope in the future. So this aspect, this universal aspect of yoga is the real attractive and fascinating. This is the appeal of yoga, not only for Indians, but for everyone at any time, in any place of the world. And I am once again grateful in my life to have the possibility and the great privilege to me this discipline, to meet authentic master who has taught me the greatness of this science, and I feel the great responsibility and one of my duty to transmit without changing anything, in the full respect of the lineage of the great master, this gift I receive, and the gift that all humanity receive from India. Thank you for your attention. Ario.